Good afternoon. My name is David Plazas. I'm the Director of Opinion and Engagement for the USA Today Network Tennessee and the Tennessean. Today I have the pleasure of having Representative Brenda Gilmore, who is running for State Senate District 19. District 19 encompasses North Nashville, downtown Nashville, parts of southeast Nashville, and Representative Gilmore is looking to succeed Thelma Harper, who has been in the Senate for the last 27 years. The election is on August 2nd. Early voting goes through July 28th, so if you haven't voted, please plan to do so within the next several days, and of course, at the latest by Thursday, August 2nd. Representative Gilmore, so good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I also may add that District 19 also includes Antioch. It's a huge area, and Antioch are doing great things out there, so I don't want to leave them out of the picture.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit about why are you running for this seat?
Well, I'm running for this seat because I think I have the unique experiences and background to step right in as being senator on day one, that it will be no on-the-job training, that I'm ready to take off my high heels and put on my running shoes and do great things for the state of Tennessee in terms of improving the quality of life for all Tennesseans, District 19 especially, but also this position has a responsibility to look out for all Tennesseans, whether you're in rural Tennessee or whether you live in urban Nashville or Knoxville or Memphis or Chattanooga. And I think my background, I've served as a Democratic Executive Committee woman, Metro Councilwoman for 8 years, so I still have great relationships with all of the Metro Council members and know the responsibilities and the issues on the ground level, and had the honor of serving the last 12 years as a state representative. So if the people, which I hope they will have confidence in me and vote for me to be the next state senator, District 19, I can go in on that second Tuesday in January, take my oath, and roll up my sleeve and start working for them.
So you've been in the State House of Representatives for the last 12 years. What are you proudest of?
I am proudest of, during the time I had the honor of serving as president of the Tennessee Black Caucus, and our main initiative was criminal justice reform. And we went all over the state of Tennessee having hearings looking at the impact of crime and incarceration and how it affects families. We think sometimes that when a mom or a dad goes to prison, it only involves them, but it affects the children and the significant ones and a community as a whole. That was very eye-awakening for me. Out of that, there were 40 bills that were proposed by our Black Caucus members, and we were successful in getting 7 of those bills passed, which was huge. I'm very proud of that.
In our editorial board meeting just before this broadcast, you mentioned the 37208 zip code, which is known as those, especially men who were born in the early to mid-1980s, have the highest incarceration rate in the entire country. Now, that is District 19 right there. That's part of District 19.
Yes.
What do you think you can do to help alleviate that situation?
That's the heart of District 19, and I think we must do something about that. 3728, not just the highest incarceration in the state of Tennessee, but the entire country. There's nothing to brag about it. One of the things, crime and criminal justice, having safe neighborhoods is one of my pillows that I'm running on. And I think community policing is very important, where we get the policemen out of their cars, get them into the community where they can be proactive rather than to respond to a crime. African Americans make up about 28% of the population in Davidson County, yet 53% of all of the arrests of African Americans. I'm not saying it's based on racism, but I do think that we need to emphasize that law enforcement take cultural bias training so that when arrests are made, the appropriate responses are made and the appropriate questions are made, and that we have a good relationship. The community has a good relationship with the police officers, and the police officers know the very fiber. And I'm also a big supporter of cameras in cars. Those cities that have employed the body cameras and the recorders, there's actually been greater trust that has been built up between the police officers, law enforcement, and the community. And in most instances, it's proved that police officers are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little about one of the big issues, which is education in the state. What are some of your priorities you have, especially if you are able to start in the Senate in January? Mm-hmm. What would you like to see happen that's different? Because obviously people agree that education is a major priority. It's one of the big ticket items on the Tennessee budget. But there are cities that are suing the state for adequate funding. Mm-hmm. There's concerns over testing and the validity of results and how the tests are being given, and at the same time the teacher assessments. Could you talk a little bit overall what you'd like to do?
Well, I'm very proud, first of all, that as a General Assembly and legislators that we have made it more accessible. Education and tuition is very, very expensive. So we've got to do some things where we make it easier for our young people to go to college if they want to. So I'm very proud that if every child in the state of Tennessee wants to go to school, the first 2 years, if they go to a community college, it's free. And so we've got to make sure that our community colleges are good, strong, quality education so that our students can move easily from a junior college into a 4-year college and continue their education and not come out with these horrendous tuition bills. Some of the other things that we do, I also had the honor of serving as co-chair of the STEM caucus, is encouraging our young girls and African Americans in particular to take some of these tough courses in science and in computer, in chemistry and biology and in math so that they can be strong students, and that this will also help them when they go to the college and they can end up graduating in 4 years rather than 5 or 6 years. Those are some of the things. I think mentorship, we got to make sure that as community people that we step up and we pair ourselves with young people so that we can help maneuver them through the college process and help them be more successful and assure that they're going to graduate in. And as legislators, we got to make some tough decisions in terms of making sure that we have the funding, that we're just not talking the talk, but we also walking the walk, that we are funding our schools, all of our schools, regardless of where the zip code is, and that we are adequately preparing our teachers in terms of training and salaries. Those are some of the things that I would like to continue to work on.
Mm-hmm. And another issue that has come up during your time in the legislature is the expansion of Medicaid. I'm sure Tennessee failed to pass. It didn't even get a vote in the House or the Senate. Mm-hmm. Would you try to pursue something to the effect if you're elected senator?
Absolutely, definite. I shared earlier that I have some personal experiences of people who do not have insurance, and when they go into the hospitals, their only alternative is emergency room. And in emergency room, we have some excellent hospitals here in Davidson County and across the state. But the fact is that when you don't have insurance, your only option is emergency room. Very little preventative care. So, and I don't know if you're aware of, but we are the 48th sickest state in the United States. So we need our insurance. I will continue to work to expand Medicaid to ensure that those 300,000 people out there who do not have insurance or either underinsured would be able to have quality health care.
Mm-hmm. Again, you're looking to succeed Senator Thelma Harper after 27 years. It's known that she endorsed one of your opponents. Talk to us a little bit about what that means, if anything at all, and how you differentiate yourself from your opponent.
I think politics are different now. I consider myself as a public servant. I've been in the trenches working on community issues, not just in my legislative role, but because I care, I have the capacity and the compassion, and I see what the issues is, whether it's working to help the Latino communities or whether it's working to help someone in North Nashville or Antioch. In fact, when the young children were handcuffed in Murfreesboro, I went to Murfreesboro and advocated for those young people to make sure that they did not have those criminal records that would follow them and to ensure that they were getting the right resources so that there would not be any mental issues left as a result of having first graders handicapped. So I've been in the community working, and I think that the community is very savvy and that they would look to see who has been working on their behalf, and that I just didn't start working because I was interested in running for state senate. I have been preparing myself for this position for the last 20 years as a Metro Councilwoman, as a state representative, and now I'm ready to step into that position. And I hope that the community will honor me and vote for me to be their next state senator based on my past work, not on political promises, sometimes that are not carried out. They're only made in order to run for that particular position, but be able to see the works that I've done in the past.
Well, some of the controversial issues that have come up in the legislature have had to do with Confederate monuments. You have the Nathan Bedford Forrest bust that's in the Capitol building. How do you approach those kinds of conversations, especially since the climate has really heated up around those issues?
Well, I have participated in the movement to have it that a monument moved. I think the more appropriate place is in a museum where it would be in the right context and our students could learn the history about him. Right now, all they do is just see the monument up there, and some of them don't even know the history behind it. And it's really insulting, particularly for African Americans, when we have to walk by that monument knowing that his history and how he abused slaves during that time. And the fact also that these monuments, many of them were placed in the 60s. So they were not, I think that they were placed there as a result of the civil rights movement to send a message. I think we should be respectful of all cultures, but things that hurt other people directly related to slavery, I think it's time for us to move them. I had a piece of legislation asking that it would be moved to the museum. I talked with some of my Republican colleagues, and most of them agreed with me that it should be moved to the museum. But because they are in the majority right now, they were not prepared to do that right now and would not take a vote on it. In fact, Memphis was penalized as a result of removing their monuments in the nighttime, I would say.
And related to that, one of your colleagues, John Ray Clemens, tried to pass a resolution that would condemn white nationalism, white supremacy, and it got a little bit of play. The state of Illinois had criticized Tennessee as well. What did you think about that? Was that a relevant debate to have this time, and how would you approach it if you're in the state Senate?
I think it was a very relevant debate, and even though it did not pass, Representative Clemens could not get it passed. I think that you have to create awareness of it, and for us to impress upon our colleagues how these issues hurt the citizens across the state of Tennessee. I saw that in the state of Tennessee, the monument license tags have gone up 73%. So I think that we have a responsibility of things that's going on a national level that we do better. I think Tennessee, that's why we call the volunteer state, that we can do better than what's happening on the national level, that we can treat each other in more of a humane way and be more sensitive to the issues that we know are hurting to each other. So yes, and I often tell people that you have to, if something that's important to you, if you don't get it the first session, you just have to keep coming back to the well. It took 20 years for us to get the lottery passed, and it's made a huge impact on the educational system. So I would encourage Representative Clemens to continue the good fight.
And we talked a little bit about your pillars. One of them has to do with affordable housing and livable wage. How do you impact that as a state senator?
Well, I think that in terms of the living wage, that we definitely need that. It's hard for someone to take care of themselves, their husband, their wives, and their children on minimum wages. $7.25 is very, very challenging to pay. Housing, which is only supposed to cost about 33% of our income, it's now approaching something like 42 to 46% of the income. So we've got to get that increase. There was a proposal to increase it to $15 an hour, and I would certainly support that. There's a huge pay gap between what women make and what men make, and that there's an equity issue. If we're doing the same job, the same responsibility, we have the same qualifications, then we should make the same money. So we've got to close that gap as well. In terms of affordable housing, it's getting harder and harder to be poor in Nashville, Davidson County. We've lost about 5,000 housing units since 2016, and we've got to make up that. I appreciate everything everybody's doing in the community in terms of trying to address it, but we have to speak with louder voices, and we have to have a policy on the federal level. We have to have policies on the state level and on the local level. If we are to meet the shortage, which has been projected about 31,000 housing units by 2026, there has to be policy changes in order to address those shortage. And to think of, again, I've used this word often about humane. Think about those individuals that need housing. That is the greatest cause of homelessness, is housing. So when we solve that, we will solve our homelessness issue in this city, in this state, and we will also be able to assure our seniors and people who have lived in the city and have worked and now want to enjoy the fruits of their labor, we will ensure that they have a safe neighborhood, affordable home to live in, rather than pushing them on the periphery of the city where our transportation is not as robust as it needs to be to get them back in for their doctor's appointments and to see their loved ones.
One of the issues that has come up because of the affordability issues is the role of economic incentives in drawing businesses and retaining them here. And there's been now comments both from Republicans and Democrats related to how you go about those. Do you have a specific position, or do you have a specific thought in terms of how to address that issue of economic incentives to businesses?
Yes, I definitely. I think that we need to do more of that. I think we need to be particularly sensitive to make sure that we're taking all of the issues. I know there's been a huge debate of whether we should be bringing soccer to Nashville when there are so many other issues. But in order to increase the economic viability of the city, we have to bring in businesses constantly. I think in terms of affordable housing, if we give incentives to nonprofits and for-profits to build affordable housing, I think that that's a great way to use our taxpayers' monies. I think providing some low-cost loans to businesses and developers to build affordable housing is a great way. And just generally increasing the the improvement in the way that we live by bringing other companies here, creating more jobs, will make this a more robust environment. So yes, I'm in favor of it, but I do think that it has to be a balance to make sure that those corporations, those companies, live up to their words. When we give them our taxpayer money, that they're going to come, they're going to live in Davidson County or live in the state of Tennessee and in other cities, and they're just not going to take our taxpayers' monies and then run away.
Now, in your 12 years in the legislature, you've served with two governors, Governor Bredesen and Governor Haslam. How do you see them as being effective, and what do you expect of the new governor to come in 2019?
Well, I expect the new governor to come in and to be able to begin again on day one working. We have some huge issues, I think, in the state of Tennessee. We've made lots of improvement in education. We still, though, are very near the bottom. Health care is huge in the city. Tennessee is number one in terms of bankruptcy, and it's as a direct result of medical bills. So we've got to address that. We've got to get Medicaid approved. There's been 10 hospitals already that have closed in our rural counties and cities, and those individuals in those places, they don't have any alternative except to get in their cars and drive to the nearest hospital. Sometimes that may be an hour away. And in addition to that, those hospitals provide jobs for that city. So that's got to be addressed. I think those two things. And then for the state to take some responsibility on affordable housing. I know that it's a local issue, but it's so large that we've got to step in and we've got to do something about it as well. And transportation. I was trying to get here today and got stuck in traffic because of an accident. If there's any minor thing that goes wrong in our day-to-day lives regarding traffic and transportation, it throws the entire traffic plan helter-skelter. So we've got to address that. I think it was clear that Davidson County said that the last plan was too expensive and it didn't benefit enough people, but it's something that's got to be done. Our crumbling bridges, our highways, and traffic must be addressed. Those are some of the things I hope our governor will respond to immediately.
So we're coming to the conclusion of the interview. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to say to voters?
Well, I wanted to share again the 7 pillars that my campaign is built on, which is strong schools, regardless of where your zip code is, having safe neighborhoods, having good jobs, not just minimum wage jobs, but living wage jobs, having good health care for everybody, affordable housing, transportation, improving transportation, and continuing to improve on criminal justice reform.
Well, we want to thank you, Representative Gilmore, for your time here, and want to thank the viewing audience. Remember that the election is on August 2nd. Early voting goes through July 28th. Next Thursday, August 2nd, is your last opportunity to vote. Again, this is the Senate District 19 primary election. There are 4 Democrats on the ballot. In November, there will be 2 independents vying against the winner of the Democratic primary. There are no Republicans running, but it's important to do your civic duty and go vote. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.